Cheers.
Cheers.
Salud.
It's important to have a little
Absolutely.
sip first.
Absolutely.
What's going on, guys? I'm Liza Quin, Creative Director of IDA, here with the amazing Richie Estime.
Glad to be here.
Where can we follow you? At Rich Rich.
Yes.
Spell it out for us.
Yes, absolutely. If you're on Instagram, you can find me at rich.e.rich_. And on Twitter, you can find me on at Richard_Estime. That's Estime. And on Facebook, under Richard Estime. You can find me on all those social media channels.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
Absolutely.
So, Richie,
Thank you for having me.
I'm trying to get Richie to contribute some content for us. So
Yes.
We'll talk about that later.
Let's do it.
We'll have our meeting about that later.
Yes.
But
Okay.
in the meantime, I want you guys to get to know him because I'm basically reaching out to everybody that's got that entrepreneurial spirit, that grew up in music. Explain what your background is and how it led you to where you're at now, which we'll get to what Richie's working on now.
Okay, absolutely. The best way I can sum it up is that I do music. I'm a full-time music producer, music director, pianist, keyboardist. I started off probably taking lessons when I was young, like about 11, 12 years old, as a rite of passage, if you will. And then early stages started playing in church and playing in different orchestras and different things like that as well.
And did you know at what age was that you started
well,
learning?
I started learning at the age of 11.
And was it just like, oh, hey, I want to learn an instrument? Did your parents encourage music? Was it something that you just always were fascinated by, that you were drawn to?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because what happened was when I was as young as maybe like 4 or 5 years old, I had an affinity for music. And so I used to watch TV shows like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and I'd be right in front of the television. And
I love that show.
Yeah, exactly. But the funny thing was, what drew me to music was when I used to watch those old TV shows, I would listen to the music more than I'd pay attention to what was going on screen. So I'd just be sitting and watching, and listening to a little lounge music and a little jazz music, and I used to have a little radio next to my bed. And I used to listen to oldie stations and classical stations and jazz stations, and so
old soul.
Yeah, I guess I was an old soul. I really was. And then it was my parents, to answer your question, that I guess they saw that I was just really drawn to music. And my dad one day was like, "All right, well, you're taking piano lessons." So I was like, "All right," And
you latched on right away.
I latched on right away. And the funny thing was, I got to tell this quick story. And so probably about a year or so into my piano lessons, I'm at that 11, 12-year-old middle school stage where, I'm distracted by girls and sports and, video games and all that stuff that young boys get distracted by. And so I wasn't doing my lessons and my homework. And so my dad was picking me up from my piano lessons. And my instructor was telling him that, Richard has a lot of potential and he seems like he has a lot of natural ability, but he doesn't seem to be focused and he's not doing his work. And then so my dad was like, "Don't you worry, I'll take care of him." So we're driving home. I'm driving home, sweating bullets. I'm like, "Oh man, I'm about to get it."
Oh, because you knew the teacher.
I knew. Your dad. Yeah, I knew it. And then so my dad sat me down. And long story short, he gave me the biggest guilt trip of my life. He basically said to me, "Hey, listen, if you don't want to do piano lessons anymore, if you want to quit doing music, that's fine. You can go outside, play, and do your sports. Do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to do it no more, no problem. But remember, one day, your other friends that are studying to be great musicians and great artists, they're going to be traveling the world and become these great musicians, and you're going to be nothing but a bum." That's when.
Wow, if that
true
was
story. That's exactly what my dad said to me. He said, "You're going to be a bum because I stopped doing piano lessons." So. Yeah,
not
exactly.
Like, hey, it's okay. You choose another type. You're gonna be a bum.
Exactly.
That's guilt at its finest, and I love it.
Absolutely. my parents are Caribbean, so they exactly. So that's
Cuban guilt was what we called it.
Exactly. Well, I'm Haitian, so now it's Haitian guilt.
It's the same kind of guilt.
Same kind of guilt, but it worked. Especially because I did love it, and also I didn't want to let my dad down. And then so it was probably the biggest turning point of my life.
Right.
Because I could have easily let the other stuff distract me from cultivating what really was my passion.
But it shows a lot about your character already from an early age. That A, you didn't want to let anybody down.
Yeah.
That B, you wanted to be better than.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That being a bum was not an option.
Yeah, exactly.
And that you rose to the challenge too.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're someone that likes, okay, yeah. Well, I'm not gonna be. Watch, I'll show you. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I look to that moment as being a turning point in where I am now. Like if I didn't have that guilt trip from my dad, who I love dearly and who I'm very close with, I may have easily just thrown my gift to the wayside because I was just so caught up in being an adolescent and doing all the other things that kids do.
I like how you said throw your gift to the wayside.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's stuff that I like to talk about a lot because there's two types of people. There's like people that they have it, but they're like, you know, and they kind of, and that's okay too.
Absolutely.
And then there are the other ones who maybe go like, which is another topic we'll touch upon, but then maybe go like, I have this gift, so I must have to do this.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of like an interesting conversation
Absolutely.
to have later. Just because that's where we get into in the first webinar that we do, which is about passion versus calling.
Yes.
And we'll invite you in to talk about stuff. When
That's
we
such a great topic.
That.
Absolutely.
Check that out. That's the first webinar on the website. It's the first chapter.
Okay. Awesome.
So back to your story.
Yes.
It was getting good. Okay, so you didn't want to let your dad down, and what happened next?
And then so I just got in line, started doing my homework, started studying the things I was supposed to do for my piano lessons, and that catapulted me.
Did you know at that time that you would do it as a profession?
Actually, I didn't see it as a professional initially. I just saw it as something that I enjoyed doing.
Uh-huh.
And so I didn't see it as a... to better answer your question, I'll put it like this. When my parents encouraged me to do piano lessons, they encouraged it just because it would just be a great talent to have.
Absolutely,
You
yeah.
know?
And I wanted you to be as well-rounded as
Absolutely.
possible.
You know, but even they never imagined that I'd be able to take it and actually make a career and make a life out of it.
Do you think it's because at that age we're not thinking about that type of thing? Like we're
Absolutely.
just thinking, this is what I love, so I'm just going to do it because I love it.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing?
Absolutely. And partly culturally, because of my background, I know you can relate with your background too, our backgrounds usually don't see music and being an artist as what you would call a stable career choice,
right.
or a way to, or maybe even a potential lucrative career. And so, because usually, their mindset is, go to school, get a degree.
I feel like that's kind of in general.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
Which is true.
most people.
Yeah.
Because I'll get a lot, even like either at a gig or wherever, like in conversation, what do you do? Oh, I work in music, and it's like, okay, well, what else do you do?
Exactly.
I joke about that all the time because I just find it to be the most interesting. Like, I don't ask, I don't know, so what do you do, accountant? Like, okay, what else do you do? Because just people don't relate those things. It's something that's hard for them to really comprehend.
Absolutely, because when they see megastars, superstar artists, singers, musicians on TV or at concerts or whatever.
They think it only lives there.
Exactly. They only put it on that particular platform, and they normally see that type of success as an aberration.
Right.
And so...
and the only thing that they can actually understand, not to interrupt you, but I guess it's like the only thing, this plus this equals this, that person's on TV, and I either like their music or I don't. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
I think that's how they associate it. It's just something they can...
And they don't see a lot of artists that aren't necessarily on those huge stages or huge platforms as actually being able to do music as a career and as a lifestyle, unless you're like an A-lister, unless you're like Rihanna or Beyonce or U2. So a lot of times when they see people like us that may not necessarily be on that level yet, it's hard for them to fathom that we actually make a career and a lifestyle out of our music.
Well, it's interesting because, at least for me, there was a turning point in my life where I thought to myself, was that going to define my success per se?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I wasn't sure if really that was the ultimate goal at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
It started to shift in the sense that my happiness started to be the ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm.
The way I made people feel.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about that a lot, just like because I feel like that's the part of the ebb and flow of art, and its consumption, and enjoyment.
Absolutely.
So I feel like that how it makes people feel, how I'm impacting things, if I'm doing things with good intentions.
Absolutely.
And if that evolves into the kind of thing that I ultimately want to live off of, obviously then that's where the business brain kicks in and you figure out, how to
Exactly.
keep evolving that from a business perspective, because you do have to have that aspect in order for to really thrive on it and make it grow to a bigger place.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think it's interesting because that's another conversation that I want to have along the line is that the measure of success necessarily?
Well, I think to me, honestly, the measure of success, it can't just be equated to how many plaques you have on the wall or how much money you have on the in the bank.
Right.
I think what really is based to me is based on, are you living in your purpose?
Right.
And are you using your passion as a vehicle to get to your purpose?
You are just leading us right back to our main talking point.
That was unscripted, ladies and gentlemen.
I didn't even tell him to say that.
Nope.
Well played. Well played.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it all goes down to that.
It goes
That's
down
the
to that.
whole foundation of the method that we try to use to help develop artists is that we call it F3 because it's find, forge, fulfill.
Yes.
So it's find your calling, forge your path, and then ultimately find a life of fulfillment.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So exactly what you're saying. We couldn't be more on the same page.
Definitely.
Okay, so that being said, what was the point that led you to understand that was going to start becoming something you were going to be making a living off of?
Okay, I think it probably started around when I first started, when I left high school. When I was in high school, I really started cultivating my gift, and not just working in churches, but also working with artists and recording groups. And even before I knew what I was doing, I just kind of ended up, it's like my life started heading in that direction without me even being strategic about it. And so, but again, because of how I was raised, I was taught, go to school, get an education, and so which is invaluable, absolutely. And so, growing up in my culture, I call this like the holy trinity of professions in my culture, where
like doctor,
lawyer, engineer.
Oh, okay, right.
You already know that's the
yeah.
holy trinity. And so my parents was like, you have to either be a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer. It had to be one of those three. And then so I was like, well, I know I didn't want to be a doctor, and even though I could speak and I love to debate and have banter, I don't know if I wanted to be a lawyer per se. So like, you know what, I'll try engineering. And then so I went to school for engineering, and then I just
So you actually went for it.
I went
you
for
gave it a shot.
I gave it a shot.
And you were you starting to gig at this point?
I wasn't performing professionally, but I was still working, as far as like working with groups and working with choirs and working with different individuals.
Playing in church.
Exactly.
Stuff like that.
But not necessarily making a full-time living yet.
Gotcha.
So at this point, it was
but
still
you were maybe starting to
outside.
pick up here and there where somebody would actually pay you to
Exactly. And the kind of pay then was like,
right.
It was barely.
Like, I'll give you half a sandwich and $50 for gas.
Exactly. Exactly. Maybe they'll validate my parking, that type of thing.
I'll buy you lunch. Richard.
Exactly. But to answer your question, when I started studying engineering, I went to this one school, and I just wasn't happy in it. I just wasn't feeling fulfilled, and so my focus wasn't there. And then so I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's the school. So I left the school, went to actual state university, and did that for about a year. And then I realized it wasn't the school. It was the fact that that's not where my heart was. It's not where my passion was. And it wasn't tied to where I felt like my true calling, my true gifting would be centered around.
Did you immediately realize what that calling was? Or were you like, oh man, maybe I do have to consider piano? Or was it something you had to kind of mull over a little?
Well, I think I knew it before, but when I tried to focus on other things that I felt like were more practical,
it still wasn't.
That's what kind of confirmed to me that no, music is where your heart is. Music is where your passion is. Music is where you have the most impact in life. And so that's when I started deviating from what I thought I was supposed to do and actually doing what I knew my heart was leading me, and that's focus on music. And because of that, and I think around 2003 was when I started. Actually, let me go back. 1999 was when I started doing production. I had a production team, and we started working with different artists and doing things in the music industry.
Were you working? Did you have a day job at that point?
Yeah, I did have a day job.
And you would then work at, did you have a studio? You worked at a friend's studio?
Yeah, we had a studio. We had a studio at the house. And so we would, work during the day, school during the day or whatever,
Gotcha.
and then late night, work on tracks and start developing that ability. And then it was not until, and then, we were fortunate to be able to, have some records that were able to be released and work with some major people like Wyclef and
Very cool.
did some soundtrack work on some different stuff. So.
And did that happen just from word of mouth?
A lot of it was relationships.
Relationship.
You know, a lot of times in the music industry, as you know, a lot of it is just not just what you know, but who you know.
Yeah,
and
I
how
asked
well
that
they know
because
you,
I
you
know
know?
a lot of young
Yeah.
artists that they're like, well, how did you start, or
Yeah.
how do I get to so and so, or how do I get people to listen to my record, or
Yeah,
how can I
yeah.
get an artist to cut it? So I always like to ask that because it's true. It's the more you're grinding,
Exactly.
and the more you're out there networking and going
Exactly.
to everybody's shows and going to everybody's studios and interacting and mingling. That's really where you
Absolutely.
make things happen, is relationships.
The music industry is a huge on. It's a relationship based industry,
And keeping them.
and keeping them. You know, being not just being talented. So I think being talented is actually probably 10, maybe 20% of the equation.
And that's the forgiving number, I think.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's the old what's the old quote? Adage, the famous quote that success is 90% perspiration or 10% perspiration.
Oh, right.
90% inspiration or whatever, but a lot of it in the music industry and in this industry as a exactly, you could be talented all the way down to your pinky toe, but if you don't have the other aspects that actually contribute more to your success, whether it's hard work, whether it's perseverance, whether it's relationship building, knowing how to network, and also being someone that people like to work with, and being personable. I think that's one of the key.
You start burning bridges early, you're screwed.
Exactly. I know a lot of people in the industry, whether in the local industry or in the national industry, that amazing talent, but people don't like working with them.
Yeah.
And so they cut off their opportunities just because they're not likable and they're not approachable and they're not personable. So I think that's a very key point.
So what point did you transition into that quitting your day job?
It was one of those things that I think it was kind of divine, because I was working this great job at the time. I was making like $11, $12 an hour. You know, back in 2001, 2002. That's like, you know, I was like 20, 21 at that time. I'm thinking I'm making a whole lot of money. I'm banking. And then the account that I was working on, it was like a customer service job. The account closed down, so they laid off our whole department. And then so it kind of happened. Almost like, I think by divine intervention, like, okay, I lost this job, was having a hard time finding another job, and so it forced me to focus, put all my attention on music. And since 2003, an opportunity became about while I was still doing production and working with artists, where I can start doing music as a professional musician.
And like you said, it forced you.
It actually
did. And it's funny because we were talking about that last night.
Yeah.
And I tell people this all the time, because it's a tough trend. I'm not saying it's easy to make those decisions.
Not at all.
But it's really easy to get stuck in the grind of like that structure of like, well, no, because I can't, because my job, because I have to be up early, because I can't, but then at 6, but then I have to. And it's like, I get that you have to, but if you're going to transition out of it, you either have to take a huge dramatic leap, because being uncomfortable is the only thing that makes you get results. Like, it's the only thing that makes you act. Like, you have to light a fire under your butt.
Absolutely.
And I tell people, be as uncomfortable as possible.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like chilling on your friend's couch, you got no responsibility, it's like, that's not going to make you take those extra steps to really get in a direction that you want to go.
I think comfort zone is probably the biggest enemy to success, because it's so easy to be
and that steady paycheck is comfortable.
It is,
you know, and it forces you to act fast, and to be like, you know, well, this came up, I'm gonna go for this, I'm gonna do this. It's sink or swim.
It's sink or swim.
And
absolutely.
that's a really important place to be, I think, when you need to make huge
I can agree more. Absolutely more.
So that forced you, and then what was the first thing you started? You got asked to do a gig for.
And then I again, based off of relationships, and one person referred me to this one band, a popular band that I was working in the South Florida area. They were looking for a keyboard player, and so came in. They liked the way I played, threw me in the fire. Next thing you know, I've been fortunate that ever since 2003, so about 13 years now.
Was this remix?
No, this was actually the Derek Mack band.
Oh, okay.
I think you probably know Derek Mack, but ever since then,
I do. Too.
Yeah, ever since then, I've been able to. That was the point where I was actually making a full-time living doing music up until now. And I've been eternally grateful for it.
Thanks for watching, guys. Check out part 2 of the interview with Richard Estime right here on this YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button.